Hi everyone. Good evening. How are you all? Hope you're doing fine and enjoying your STEAM activities that we are sharing through the PowerPoints. Do let us know how your lessons are going and if there are any changes that you have made in your way of teaching in schools. Please do let us know. We'd be happy to have your feedback. Today's lecture is lecture 14 on diverse learners. So let's get started. So welcome to module 4 and lecture 14, adapting STEAM to different and diverse learning styles. So how do we adapt STEAM to different learning styles? Um, you know, you must have heard this quote before that if I can't learn the way you teach, will you teach me the way I can learn? That's really fits in right for diverse learners, doesn't it? And a very famous, a quote I read in an article that you see children with and without disabilities learning together, and participating in the same daily activities and routines. The real difference is in how the teacher plans and adapts for each and every child, regardless of ability. The goal is for all children to become equal participants and members of this group. But what is equality in education? Do you think every child needs the same opportunities that the other child is getting? Do you think equality can solve the problem? Or is it something else that we can do? Let's look at this video to see, enhance our thoughts a little bit. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing to understand that fair is not what, that everyone should get the equal opportunity, but it should be the opportunity that you need, that is catered to your needs. That is fairness, really, right? The aims of this presentation today are going to be recognizing and accommodating diverse learning styles, differentiated instruction in STEAM education, and case studies on catering to different learning needs. So how can we recognize and accommodate diverse learning styles? Can we first try to understand what are the diverse learning styles and why is it important for us to recognize as educators and accommodate? Firstly, it's recognizing and then accommodating, right? So I would like at this point to show you a quick video on universal of design of learning. um, So the universal design for learning is especially catering to inclusivity, and it talks about adapting our role as educators. How can we adapt our schools, our classrooms, our environment, our learning environment, towards the needs of the children who come into our classrooms. They could be diverse backgrounds culturally, they could be diverse backgrounds socioeconomically, they could be diverse backgrounds in intelligence, in the way we have built, the way we are wired. Like they say, every child is wired differently. So how is it that a child is learning if there are any special needs? So how can we cater and make our class environment or school environments inclusive? So we'll just quickly have a glance at the universal design for learning and then move on to recognizing diverse learners in our classrooms. So we just saw this amazing universal design for learning where it talks about how it breaks the barrier for learning. It just makes everyone, give equal opportunities to everybody to learn, by way of having catering to their needs, right? And especially the last part, if we can always kind of note it, that it talks primarily about how do we represent our information to the children, how are we teaching, what are we doing to teach, what tools we are using, the method of teaching, and how are we allowing them to express themselves and what they know, is also very important. That we need to, of course, it's going to happen as per their needs. So are we allowing them to express themselves enough? And engagement, student engagement is of course very important, because if a child is not engaged in your lesson, he or she is not going to be able to learn or take out the maximum learning that you want them to achieve in that lesson. So make sure that we cater to enough for their engagement, make sure that we allow them to express themselves and take enough actions according to their needs. And of course, initially when we represent our information to them, we present it in a way that they can understand. Okay, so let's look at all of this in a bit of detail. So I'm going to brief you a little bit about the VARK, the VARK modalities theory. Okay, you can have a read at it, if you would like to just go and have a read at it, like have a silent reading for a minute. So what are the key words that you can take away from this paragraph that you see in front of you? If you can name a few keywords that you can take away, at least three keywords. Can we have three keywords in your comment section, please? In the comment section, what three keywords that you can take away from here and from the previously seen videos that we saw on fairness and the universal design for learning? Yeah, please let us know in the comment section below. What are the three takeaways from this paragraph? I'm really waiting to hear from you, because I can totally see some very words that are just like in right there in front of me is inclusivity, inclusive, having something, an environment where every child feels inclusive and that we are catering to their needs. And the other word that comes to me is multiple. You have multiple ways to be successful. Students feel that they know that there are multiple ways to solve problems. There's not just one way that is right. And like how they say it's my way or the highway, uh, that doesn't happen in an inclusive classroom, right? So it's always that everyone has, there's no wrong or right, everyone has their solutions, everyone has their points to make. There are multiple ways to learn from mistakes. So there's a lot of learning happening there. So that's my second word, key takeaway word. And the third one would be learning, because learning has to happen right in your classroom, because that's what you want them to achieve. That's why we are here. We are here so that our students learn. So yes, inclusive learning in multiple ways. That's my key takeaway. Let me know yours. Okay, taking from forward from here towards WARC modalities. So WARC talks about, the V is for visual learning types. So when we try to recognize the different learning styles, we can say that there are some students who are visual learners. We'll talk about it in brief in the next slide. The A stands for auditory learners. learners who can learn better with listening, by listening to things. Visuals are, learners are children who can learn better by looking at something around them. Auditory are by listening to things around them. And kinesthetic are children who learn most and prefer to learn by doing or hands-on experiences, rather than just sitting and listening to a lecture or watching something. For them, it's movement. It's all about moving. So here's a little link to a WAC questionnaire. If you would like to, try it yourselves, you can also try and see what kind of learner you are. So do take this questionnaire. I have this link here. Do try and have a look at it, and answer the questionnaires yourself and see what kind of learner you are. Yeah, do try it. It's very interesting. Okay, moving on. Firstly, to the visual learners. Who are visual learners and how do we recognize them in our classroom? So someone with a preference for visual learning, of course, will learn best with seeing and observing things, including pictures, diagrams, written down directions, and much more. So these kind of learners are also, called the spatial learners, because they like to have, they learn with spatial orientation, because visually they want to understand everything around them visually. Okay, to and for them it is best represented visually. So anything that you can show them in a big diagram or a picture format, or drawing on a whiteboard or a chalkboard, they will love it. And if you ask them to also express themselves through drawing, that's how they will express themselves best, because they are visual learners. So how can we cater to these children in our classroom? Yes, of course, using a lot of whiteboards and blackboards, so that there's a lot of picture happening, picture displays happening, giving them opportunity to draw whatever they learned and whatever they are learning about. So for example, if you're talking about the rain cycle, the water cycle, you can draw a picture of it on the board and ask them to represent it in their books too, or the whiteboards if they have the whiteboard slates with them. Uh, if you have visual cards and flashcards of topics that you're doing, or stories that you're doing in class for early years especially, it works wonders for them to really start understanding exactly what's happening, and for them to be engaged in a topic. It's very important, because visual learners will lose interest very quickly if they are not engaged visually. So if they have to just keep listening to something without being really visually engaged or oriented, they will lose connection with the teacher. So it's important for them to be visually engaged. So that's why a lot of color around, a lot of visual cards, flashcards, pictures will help these kind of children. And even if you allow them to express themselves after what you have told them, if the prior pictures are not available, then after you finish talking, maybe they can express themselves through drawings. That will at least kind of ease them out and kind of satisfy their visual learning needs. Yeah, and also displays, of course. Yes, so if you have a particular topic, for example, again, like you're doing a rain cycle, or even like a butterfly life cycle or something, putting up relevant display in the environment is very important. Even so, for example, even if you're teaching about winter, you have a lot of display around you about snow and places that have experienced snow during winter, and how does how does the weather change, what are the things that we wear, we eat during winter time. All of these pictures that are relevant to the topic around them can help learn the language quickly, the maths quickly, everything else will, everything can be integrated into that. So there's a lot of learning that can happen if you have a good display. Coming to auditory learners, who listen and learn best when they are listening. So how do we recognize them? So auditory learners tend to learn best when subject matter is reinforced by sound. That means, yes, if the teacher is talking, or through a song, or even a story. So in early years especially, there are a lot of stories based on different topics that we can teach about. There could be, stories about weather, there can be stories about animals, to learn about, even stories around the world. If you want to teach them about the world around them, plant life, that stories around trees, flowers, just about anything. So it's very, rather, I think all children at this age are, visually and auditorily engaged in the classroom. But it's amazing, it's best to have a class full of rich visual experiences and a rich auditory and kinesthetic experiences, because these three are the main and the key factors and the key forces behind a child's learning, enhancement, and the learning journey of his life in the early years. So it's very important to have these three factors in place. So especially when they are listening to stories, songs, and in case you have you have your script ready for whatever topic you are teaching them, it's amazing for them to just pick up from what you said. And a lot of children, you might wonder that, in fact, I have an example in my class. There's a student who will not look at the teacher, will not look at the teacher when the teacher is teaching, is very busily engaged in maybe making a Play-Doh sculpture or something like that, is not looking at the teacher when the teacher is talking or giving instructions. But after the topic or after the story, the maximum answers come out of that child who is not supposedly not looking engaged in the story. But it appears that, yes, he is an auditory learner, a very good one at that, because he doesn't have to look at the teacher when the teacher is telling the story. He can hear and remember and understand, process the information, and replay it back to the teacher in ways of his response. So that's these are some amazing things that you can notice probably in your classroom. You can think of any child who is being exceptionally good at listening and relating back the information to you. They are very good auditory listeners, and probably auditory learners, and probably that's their preferred learning way of learning. uh, yeah, and especially going ahead in later years, they will be the ones who will be reading out loud to themselves, and they will be some children, they will be the ones who will not be afraid to speak up in class in way of verbally expressing themselves or explaining things. And how do we cater to these auditory learners? So since these students generally find it hard to stay quiet for long periods, they you can involve them by asking to repeat some points or new concepts back to you. So if you want them to be engaged in the class, so because they are so verbal and they are listening, and they are really good at replaying information, you can keep asking them questions to about new concepts, so that they are engaged, and also the others kind of get their information back too, right? So it's a kind of a recap for everyone in the class. You can of course ask them questions and let them answer. Invoke group discussions so that these verbal and auditory processors can properly take in and understand the information that they are being presented with. Yes, so invoking group discussions are really beneficial even in the early years, and they really work wonders. There's one technique that I use in my class. It's called think, pair, share. So whenever there is too much of like, I feel the children are very jumpy and not necessarily sitting down and very focused. So if there is a topic that I'm teaching, I will speak about it for a few moments, show them some visual cards, and then ask them to pair up with their friends or turn to their partners and talk about what they think about that particular topic. So it generally turns out to be a very successful thing, because they love talking at 4 and 5 year olds, where they're building relationships, they're building bonds with their friends, And it's fantastic to see them really turn to their partners and just immediately start getting into this discussion about what you have asked them to. So it's a focused activity where their needs are also being catered for, and your learning is being achieved, as well as uh, you know they are happy, and without disrupting the class, they are having they're getting to talk, so they're learning and talking. And you can teach with songs, stories, videos, and of course using music and audio tapes is a fantastic way. In my in one of the older children's classes, I've seen teachers use, even in the IB level in 11th and 12th, I've seen teachers using specific rap songs to teach children very high level English concepts, like maybe essay writing or some such maybe higher level prepositions and adjectives, and just really high level ones. Some very amazing rap songs are available online. So I've seen teachers being, incorporating music to teach, even the older children. And of course, younger children, we know we can't do without songs and stories, right? So it's a part of the early years life. And now it is the kinesthetic learners who learn best when they are doing things. So they are also called tactile learners, because they like being, they like getting their experiences hands on. They cannot these children will struggle to sit still, and will often be the ones who will excel at sports because they like movement so much, and they like to dance. They probably will excel at sports and dance too. Yeah, I mean, it's not to say that other children cannot excel at sports and dance, but these children maybe, specifically, often it is seen that they will excel at sports and dance because that's where their forte is, movement. And of course, while sitting still in class, they may need to take frequent breaks. So if you have kinesthetic learners in your classroom, make sure that you get them moving. You give them frequent brain breaks or movement breaks, so that they can move about, do their thing, and come back to their activity. You can even instruct, if you have an act, if you have something like, even in the rain cycle, for example, or a winter scene, if you're teaching about winter, or you're teaching about animals, so you can talk about an animal scene, or a story of an animal, story of some animals. So you instruct them to enact it out, and they will love to do it because that's what they like, right? Movement. They like to get up and do stuff. So yeah, think of strategies that can get them moving as well as learning in the classroom. And incorporate, of course, movement into lessons, helping also sometimes children pace up and down, and that helps them to memorize. So um, and in the early years, most of them, like I said, so all of these three are very strongly incorporated into the early years, because we can't do without having pictures and cards and story flashcards up. We can't do without giving them visual cues. We can't do without songs and music and stories which they can listen to. So we can't do without auditory styles of teaching them. And we cannot even do without kinesthetic way of learning or teaching, because we will have certain activity. We will have, in fact, a lot of our, most of the day we will be doing things with them. So like they'll be either playing with blocks, or they'll be playing with sand, or they'll be building something, or there'll be art and craft or painting. So a lot of these things keep happening. So kinesthetic, yes, will happen in the early years. So uh, make sure we have like a lot of board games around. We have Play-Doh and all of these hands-on stuff that you can have around for them, to even have their little breaks. You can have one activity a day for the break, so that they know that they're not spoiled for choice, and they know where to go, what to do, and then come back immediately to do your um, focused activity in the class. So these three kinds of learners. These are the three main styles of learning. Although there are more, they branch out into a few more kinds of learning styles, but we will focus on only these three learning styles for today, main learning styles for today: the visual, the auditory, and the kinesthetic learners. The fourth one, according to the Wark, according to the Wark modalities theory, which was established in 1992, they researched and they brought this one more kind of learner into the original Wark modality. They said, even reading and writing learners are, are essentially visual learners, but they thought that they learn specifically through reading and writing words. So it does overlap with visual learning, but it does, they do have a very specific area of learning or a way of learning style, that is reading and writing. So if you have students in your classroom that are specifically drawn to reading or writing, they're constantly looking up book words in the dictionary or constantly trying to write things or read books, they are your reading and writing learners. And how do we help them? It's very easy to help these children because, of course, it's just, like our education system is depending on reading and writing. It's not very difficult to cater to their needs. We, of course, have a lot of we have books in the classroom, we have papers, we have, markers, felt pens, pencils, crayons, all of this, especially in the early years, for them to express themselves through writing and mark making. So what we do in the early years especially is called mark making, because they don't really write initially. Much before writing comes into play, they make marks. And what I mean by saying making marks is making or drawing or writing something that they think represents information. So if a child, for example, has been for a holiday to to anywhere where there is a beach, so he comes back and he draws a wavy line that represents the waves of the sea, and tries to draw a little triangle and a little rectangle, and which represents the boat, and says this is the boat and this is the sea and this is where I went. And so all of this is like mark making, even though everything, it may not really look like the sea or look like the boat, but the child is making marks to represent something that he has seen or she has seen and experienced. So that is very important, mark making, and it's one of the prerequisites for writing. And so we should hold it as a very important skill. And what we can generally do when children write or draw something like that, we should scribe it immediately and write for the child what he or she has drawn. So it helps the child also feels satisfied about what he's drawn and get the information across to get the so he's satisfied that he or she has gotten the information across to us about what he's trying to or she's trying to tell us. So whenever children draw some things, please don't let it go just like that. Sit down with them, ask them what they have drawn, and write it for them just there near their drawing that they have drawn this. So it's really, see the difference. You can probably see the difference, yeah, once you do that. So for the specific reading and writing learners, we'll see when we present information with word PPTs, with written word, with a lot of writing. Even in the class, when you give them quiet reading time, writing time, scribing time, doodling time, put on the music and let them just doodle, scribble, children will love it. Yeah, most of them will love it, but specifically children who love writing will really be at it, and you will know. in your classroom, if you put large texted board displays to stimulate their learning, because get them curious about what is it. So when the children start learning, looking at sounds and letters, they really get excited, and they get, they really want to know what is written over there. And you'll often see children coming to you asking you what's written that, what's written there, or if they're learning phonics, they will try to sound it out themselves. And it's really fun to see them grow like that. So have large text board displays to stimulate them, give opportunities to get their ideas out on paper as well. So constant writing, having paper out there in the classroom, and giving, just put out crayons in around them, to anytime they feel like writing, they will just write or scribble or draw. So that's another way that we can really cater to their needs. After learning about the different styles and understanding what are the different learning styles that we have in our classroom, what can we do about them? How do we cater to them? What do we do? How do we differentiate our instructions in this STEAM education so that we can help them learn best? So thereby, giving equal opportunities to learn for all. So the first we can do is alter our methods and materials. So when we teach a new lesson, we offer our learners many different ways to engage with and absorb the content. Okay, so when the way we teach, we alter the way we teach. Okay, we incorporate more visuals to present content in different ways, such as maps, pictures, drawings, objects, or videos that especially will be great for visual learners. You, using graphic organizers to arrange key points in a way that students can easily grasp, provide additional models or demonstrations for students who need extra support during lesson. So if you can see, there's a picture of a graphic organizer here. These graphic organizers work very well in the later years for children to understand points that you're trying to make, and for them to visually sort and classify the key points and arrange the main points and what falls into each category. All of these bifurcation classification is very good when very well represented through these graphic organizers. So they're very good in the later years, but in the early years we can definitely use drawings, pictures, even real-time objects. We can do even experiments. For example, if you're talking about around the world and we want to talk about uh, even if we want to talk about, say, volcanoes, we actually do the experiment of the volcano. We can probably build a volcano using clay and maybe a lot of, like, we can make a clay dough and make a mountain, and actually make it with real things, like, you could use materials like the refined flour. You can use oil and water, and build it, like, knead it into a nice kind of a dough and make it like into a mountain structure and have like a volcano inside it, using vinegar and baking soda. You could actually have them make snow with like have them experience of making snow. Of course, it won't be real snow, but you can again have them use refined flour and mix oil and make them like, it's just like use a lot of conditioner and make it knead it into like a granulary snow kind of a texture. So all of these experiments and visual demonstrations can be like a good learning experience for the children. Also, for kinesthetic learners especially, what I find very useful is making models and structures. So if for example they're doing fairy tales, if the early years we're talking about fairy tales, we use blocks, use cartons, use recycled materials to build structures that they hear about in the fairy tales. So first let them list down the structures that they have heard of in the fairy tales. They've heard of bridges in the three billy goats. They've heard of palaces. They've heard of castles in the fairy tales. They've heard of cottages, the gingerbread man. They've heard of the gingerbread cottage in the Hansel and Gretel. So they've heard of like different structures that they've heard of. Let them then think of how can we make this. So you provide materials like empty boxes, tissue rolls, and plastic bottles maybe, and boxes, Play-Doh boxes, cartons that they can use to build their own structure. It could be an imaginary structure. It could be a structure that they imagine in their fairy tale, or it could be a structure that they've really heard about in a fairy tale. It could be anything. So it just calls for a lot of creativity, calls for a lot of collaboration with their friends if they're doing it in a group, and it calls for a lot of like a hands-on experience for all of those learners. So they are visually engaged, they are kinesthetically engaged because they're doing this hands-on, they are auditorily engaged because they're listening to their friends' ideas, they're listening to us, they're listening to each other. So they're engaged. All kinds of learning happens, and all kinds of learners can be engaged. So here you can see altering how we can alter some methods and materials. Like in the previous slide, we we select, especially in math, we can select concrete materials instead of symbolic representations. So for them to think of what is one, is a picture of one. I don't know what one stands for. I know what it looks like, but I don't know what it stands for. What is the value of one? So how do I learn the value? And if I show a picture of a ball and I say, okay, this is one and this is one ball, I mean, how do I then relate to it with real life? So having, you know, real time experiences for them, like, you know, using real objects like maybe big beads and blocks or pom poms, or and any of these materials that you think are safe for them to use at this stage. Having them, you know, an assortment of those activity, those collection of those materials, putting the numbers around them, and having to you know, giving it to them for one-to-one correspondence and understanding the value of it and the order of it. So a lot of math can happen when you put you know, concrete materials around. So you can do ordering, you can do value, you can do one-to-one correspondence. So a lot of learning can be catered to. Then technology is uh, you know, progressively getting very important in our classrooms. So no matter how hard we try, our children today are more technology savvy and technology wise. I would say that because they know so much more than we do, or we did at that age. So yes, so why not use it for education too, right? So uh, having interactive whiteboards, having audio visuals in the classroom will help them be engaged, and, you know, also of course give them that brief, give them that introduction to technology around the world, in the world around them. Providing students with differentiated reading material based on their levels or interests. So if there are reading learners and, you know, writing learners in the class, especially for us, we use the ORT regime, and ORT is the Oxford Reading Tree books. They have bands, book bands. They're reading bands starting from level books without words that are level 1, and right up to, you know, level I think 16 or 17. So they are all different categories. So what children can read. So initially at, you know, 4-year-olds, children generally are still just about starting to learn phonics. So they can understand that words make sounds, but they don't necessarily know which word makes which sound. So they don't know how to read, but they are ready to read. They really want to read. So uh, starting with books without words, you know, it just gives them that push towards wanting to read and express themselves and understand. And, you know, understanding is a very important part of reading. So we want them to build, reading skills, but we also want them to build understanding along with reading. So when they see books um, without words, they can actually start understanding what pictures express. And then when they move on to reading words, they can actually, or first words, like little few words of the book, they will start associating words with the pictures and understand that, oh, like, okay, the words are giving me the information about what's happening in the picture. So it's very important to have differentiated reading material in the classroom. And you can also select books according to their interests. So if children are interested in machines or trucks or vehicles or space, you can have books around based on their interests and read it with them, and they will just love it. And for older children, of course, making the content easier to learn by highlighting the keywords in a text, or giving them pictures or symbols to understand if the if the text is too big, or if a textbook, for example, they have textbooks, so you can, the teacher can highlight some important words so that they can read those few words and understand the whole and remember the entire information that was presented to them. And now, how do we alter the process or the task? So we have to be sure to give all the learners multiple means of action and expression, and let them show what they know in a variety of innovative ways, right? So that kind of brings us back to the UDL, the Universal Design for Learning, how we allow them to express themselves and take action. And so previous one was how we represent what we're teaching them, right? How do we alter the method and the material? And now it's about altering the process or the task. So students could demonstrate understanding of the content by completing a chart or using their verbal skills to present it. So there are no forces, there's no one way of doing it, right? So like we said, it's not like, a classroom. It doesn't work with diverse learners, my way or the highway. It's about everyone choosing to learn differently, everyone being able to express themselves differently, allowed to express themselves differently. So that's what inclusive classroom is all about. So reducing the number of items that students are expected to complete. So if you feel any, that's one way of giving a differentiated instruction in your classroom. If you think a child cannot complete as many items of a task, uh, you can ask them to, for example, if you're asking children to write letters, like letter formations, and children have to write it, say, for example, trace it 5 times, you could ask them to, you could ask these children to trace it 2 times. You don't have, they don't have to do it 5 times to show it to you, because then they will really lose interest and they wouldn't want to come back and do it again. So understand and use the teacher discretion to build an all-inclusive classroom where they are happy and they are engaged. And giving students the option of using the same materials as the rest of the class. For example, for example, if you're doing fairy tales and we talk about Hansel and Gretel, and we're making a gingerbread house full of, candies and chocolate and biscuits mainly. Don't not to use too much sugar in the class, of course, because we don't want children to be on a sugar rush. Considering also the dietary requirements for them. We make a gingerbread house with different materials. Children can use the ingredients that they like from the assortment, and they can make the gingerbread house the way they want to. So we are not forcing them. We are not telling them this is the way it is supposed to be. They choose and they do the way they want to. Yes, the teacher can model one, the teacher can model it for them, can show them one, can demonstrate one, but then leaves it to them to express themselves the way they want to. Yes, and also allow for more creative ways for students to show what they know. So artistic children will, probably build a model. Kinesthetic, children will probably build a model. Some children will create a poster, some will draw a map, some will probably just scribe something, will just mark, make a mark and say, can you please write this, this is what I've done. So allow them to express themselves in the way they can show you what they have learned. Yes. So that's all about differentiated instructions in STEAM education. Let's look at some case studies now. So, okay. So this case study, the first case study is about, I'm just going to read it out. It's a case study about Kelly, the teacher who was keeping a working record of Maya, a student, during story time to monitor her engagement following a recent activity they had started implementing a few weeks ago to support her understanding of story facts. So this is a child who has special learning needs and finds it difficult to focus during story time. And we are looking at a case study about this little girl. Little girl Maya. So in her notes, Kelly recorded that Maya found it helpful to use story props to act out the story prior to and during retelling the story. So she also noted that Maya might need more frequent prompting by an adult to help her connect the events of a story. So organization or the events and the sequence is probably a challenge for this child. So she made sure that during every story time, before and after, she had the props ready for Maya to connect with it visually and have hands-on experience of holding the props and retelling or enacting the story. So if you find a child who is visually more engaged and less engaged auditorily, have those props ready, and maybe you can have it as a reinforcement that, oh, once we finish listening to the story, we will get to use the sick puppets and or flashcards and enact the story out. So who wants to do it? Are you going to listen to me quietly? And yes, yes, yes. So children are all very excited to with these reinforcements, and especially for things that they get excited with. So yeah, again, use your teacher discretion and keep these resources ready. This other case study reinforces 4 steps for early childhood educators. It talks about establishing a relationship between the educator, child, and family. Um, it talks about intentionally developing STEAM activities. It talks about including all children, that we talk about also inclusivity. And it talks about assessing child engagement and learning. Now, establishing relationship between the educator and child and family in a lot of schools internationally, children, the teachers go and do home visits so that they can learn the environment that the child is for the most part of the day, and so that they can cater to their learning needs back in school. So in the it is a part of the curriculum, it is built into the curriculum rather, that the teacher or the educator is required to go home, visit the home of the child to understand the learning or the way the child is at home, so that they can bring that information back to school and help them to cater to their child's need, and design the learning according to what the child we will learn best. So um, here's a case study of Mr. Matt, who has 10 children from diverse backgrounds, culturally, linguistically, socioeconomically, and have varying educational needs. That means developmental delays, autism, etc. spectra, with some students specifically receiving early intervention services, which means children already have IEPs, their individual education plan and goals, um, and that are being looked at. But Mr. Matt is a teacher who likes to believes in inclusivity and believes in an inclusive way of environment. So believes that all these children need the same environment that the normal children will need. So they should learn in an inclusive environment. They shouldn't be just segregated or separated just because they have special needs. So while he was teaching these children, he noticed an increased attention on STEAM practices and the way STEAM increased benefits in the areas of brain development, executive functioning, maths, literacy, scientific inquiry, and social acquisition. So as he began to read articles and blogs about STEAM activities in the classroom, he began to think about how he could implement these within his setting, especially for children who may need more targeted support. He decided to first start this process with Jeremy, a student with autism spectrum disorder, as he was highly motivated by STEAM concepts. Now let's see how he incorporates it into his teaching. So during Jeremy's home visit and meeting with his parents, Mr. Matt observed him playing with some of his favorite toys in the house and interacting with his family. When asked, Jeremy's parents confirmed that his main interests during playtime at home were playing with blocks and animal toys, especially dinosaurs. So the family expressed concerns about Jeremy's ability to join and play with other children in the classroom and maintain interest in learning activities. Mr. Matt left the home visit determined to plan new ways to include Jeremy in learning activities. So this little visit perhaps helped Mr. Matt to design a special learning plan for Jeremy back in school, especially because he was an autism spectrum disorder. So Mr. Matt made a note to be sure he had dinosaurs available for Jeremy to explore throughout the classroom, because he had noticed that Jeremy loves dinosaurs, right? And he loves playing with them. And he noticed him playing with them at home too. So he wanted to make sure that he had dinosaurs available now for him to explore throughout the classroom. Okay, and Mr. Matt learns that one of the critical aspects of STEAM is integrating of science, technology, engineering, art, and maths throughout the day. So by implementing these aspects, he hopes that children will generalize STEAM concepts across activities and routines. He needs to approach already existing activities in a way that integrates science, maths, engineering, technology, and arts. So he decides to plan child-guided activities and to create an environment in which children explore and manipulate materials freely so that they learn and acquire skills through their experiences. Now, there's an opportunity for Mr. Matt to integrate maths. One morning, Mr. Matt observes Jeremy building roads and playing with dinosaurs in the small sandbox area in the classroom. He thinks that this is a great opportunity to integrate math. Mr. Matt, Jeremy, how about we draw a straight line on my paper every time a dinosaur comes to the bridge? Sometimes people pay money for using bridges. We need to record how many dinosaurs are using our bridge. Mr. Matt and Jeremy continue playing by making lines each time a dinosaur comes to the bridge. After a few minutes, Mr. Matt and Jeremy count the lines using one-to-one correspondence. So isn't that amazing how the maths got integrated just while playing? While planning for STEAM activities and focusing on one-to-one correspondence, Mr. Matt reflects on what he knows about his students. Taking into consideration the high engagement that Jeremy showed while playing with dinosaurs during the home visit, he considered designing activities around the dinosaur theme. Mr. Matt noticed that other children in the class also enjoyed playing alongside Jeremy. And interacting with him in the block center with dinosaur toys or while looking at the books in the book center related to dinosaurs. He planned two activities around the dinosaur theme focused on STEAM concept of one-to-one correspondence and incorporating the universal design for learning. So not only were they playing with dinosaur toys, they were also reading dinosaur books in the book corner. So Mr. Matt finds stories that are focused on dinosaurs, such as You Can't Count on Dinosaurs and Almost Counting Book by Philip Adag and Elissa Elwick. Now, while reading the stories, Mr. Matt models one-to-one correspondence by counting the dinosaurs in the story on a few different pages. He also creates a PowerPoint presentation by finding pictures online and placing them within slides with animations and their names to share with the class. On each slide, he adds an additional dinosaur so that as he shares the presentation with the children, he can model counting dinosaurs in each slide. Isn't that amazing how just one home visit can help a teacher design and plan everything for this child so that he is able to learn so many different things according to his interest. So, in conclusion, we can say that early STEAM education has substantial impacts on the future success of individuals. Research supports that the introduction of science concepts at early ages is age appropriate for preschool children, and early exposure to scientific activities will promote young learners' analytical thinking skills and help them understand the connection between living organisms and the environment. All of these skills are necessary for individuals with special needs as well. Therefore, STEAM activities should be designed well and implemented in a way that is inclusive and meets the needs of diverse learners in early childhood settings. So, effective STEAM education is more likely to occur when early childhood educators follow the main principles of UDL that we just saw in the video, providing multiple means of engagement, providing multiple means of representation, and providing multiple means of action and expression. And like all children, children with special needs enjoy and learn through exploring, drawing, playing music, dancing, gaining first-hand experiences related to their environment. And research shows that children with special needs have the capacity to learn and engage in hands-on STEAM activities. And general or special education educators in early childhood education should use effective teaching strategies. Early childhood educators are encouraged to carefully plan and implement intentional teaching strategies and design the learning environment according to their purpose in mind and their children's needs. So children's needs are first most important. So that's it from me today. And if you can try and make an inclusive plan for your children, do let me know what kind of children did you find in your classroom? What are the different learning styles that you have? And what are you going to do about about, if you're going to make any changes, and you're going to make any changes in your lesson plans or catering to their needs. Are you going to have any differentiated instructions for them? Do share them with us, and we'll be happy to know. So keep teaching, happy teaching, and happy learning. See you.